everyone, and thank you for joining us today on Let's Talk Leobela. My name is Galina Kaye. I am the author of the sci-fi novel Leobela, and joining me here in my virtual studio today is a Leobela reader and my lifelong friend, Marina Papirova. Marina, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone, and hello, Galina. Thank you very much. It's so wonderful to be here today. And to introduce myself, I am an immigrant from Ukraine. I've lived in this country for 35 years now, and I've known you since you were a little girl. And that is why it's such a pleasure has been to see you grow to become such a wonderful, intelligent, beautiful young woman as you are today. And as for me, I am a licensed psychologist, have been in private practice as a licensed psychologist in Denver, Colorado for the past 22 years. And as you said, I am a lifelong friend with your parents and you and your sister, and very happy to be here. It was very excited just when I learned about your book coming out. It was I was looking forward to reading it, and it's a very beautiful book. So we'll be happy to discuss it with you.
Thank you, and I'm very honored to have you here today. And I was very interested in your thoughts when we first spoke. After reading Leobela, you called me, and we had such a wonderful discussion, and I thought it would be wonderful to have you here on the show and to share your thoughts and try to have this dialogue together. Can you please share your favorite parts of the book that you'd like to read today?
Yes, I prepared a couple of parts that I would like to read that really impressed me, and impressed me in so many ways. First of all, wonderful writing, beautiful dialogues, and very well-developed characters that many of whom I recognize. And I probably will talk about it a little bit. And also the plot. All right. So here we are, page 88. I wouldn't, not for anything. Mike looks a little hurt at the fact that I implied that I might be doubting him. Alexei is not a good guy. He ended up getting quite drunk that night and told me more than he probably meant to. It turned out that he was trying to recruit me to bring an illegal device to me on the ship to the Irene. Have you ever heard of radio wave neurostimulators? You mean the wearable devices that help people sleep and stay calm in stressful situations? Yes, confirms Mike. As you can imagine, if there is a device that can make you more calm, there can be a device that can make you more aroused as well, right? I'm following Mike, but I really don't like where this is going. They call it WARP, he continues. It's a small device the size and look of a small flash drive that interacts with your brainwave frequency and can cause people to get angry or sad. Basically, the backside of the coin from the original radio wave neurostimulators. Alexei asked me to bring it on the ship and here to Irene. He didn't explain what he wants me to do with it. He simply said that I wouldn't be alone. At this point, he was quite drunk and kept interrupting himself with loud shouts about how the elite will know what people like him are feeling down here on Earth. So this is the first time the wonderful group of children who were trained to have this journey to Mars, to Irene, the first city on Mars, that were trained physically, psychologically, emotionally. And they are facing their first challenge, the first crime that has ever been committed on Irene, in Irene on Mars. An illegal device, the device that can make people feel angry, frustrated, and all of the members have already experienced it firsthand when they didn't understand what was going on with them, when they all got frustrated, tense, they even started
Arguing.
with each other, which you never observed before. And now we know that it's the illegal device that makes people feel that way. But this little snippet that why he did it, he wanted people, elite people on Mars, to feel what they feel here on Earth. And it kind of rang a bell because when I was a graduate student at the University of Denver pursuing my doctorate degree in psychology, one of my numerous internships was with people in halfway house, criminals who were ready to be released back into the world, and they had to have counseling, group counseling and individual counseling. And I remember how many times we discussed what made them do what they did. And one of the things were to let other people feel what they feel, and they feel miserable. But the question immediately that I got in my head was, what makes these people on Earth who were trying to recruit Mike to take this device with him feel that way? And why the so-called elite, and we'll talk about it too, what it means, at least what it means, how I perceived it reading your book, why they are not. They're influenced by probably not to the same extent as people on Earth when they are in the close proximity to this device. So I don't know when you were writing this, how you felt about it. I would love to hear a little bit, and then I will comment from my perspective as a person who worked with people who did commit crimes and their reasons, and what makes the Dr. Kislin's group on Mars so different.
Yes, and that's exactly, you touched on it right there in that last sentence. Is exactly why. And that's what, as I was writing this portion, I really wanted to present that Leobela it's a system that does not presume competition, advancement, but it's not competition with each other. And that's why it was, first of all, very odd that these guys were fighting, right? They started arguing with each other. Debate is handled very differently in this group usually. And here they are getting very emotional with each other and frustrated. And at some point, they understand something is influencing them, right? So they run out of the building and then they calm down and so on, and they become normal again. But here I wanted to really contrast, and I was very impressed that I did a good job there, because when you called me and you told me that actually a good way to represent like the underlying reasons for somebody to commit a crime. For me, it was really representing that these Leobela kids, they don't have competition in their bones. If they do compete, it's really with their previous self. It's with their past self. And it's really the advancement through growing, understanding your goals, understanding your future, not trying to be better than somebody else. And this Alexei guy who stayed back on Earth, and he tried to recruit Mike into their wrongdoings, and wanted Mike to bring this device to Irene, which ended up still coming on board with the kids, but they didn't know about it. So they ended up finding a different way to transport the device. But the original way was to recruit Mike, who is the oldest of the teenagers traveling, and he even tried to offer him alcohol, and that didn't work. And Mike shows Mike's character, and that's what I really wanted to show, that by 14, 15 years old, he's a developed powerful individual that is ready to make decisions on his own. He's not going to be influenced by somebody. He's not going to be competitive. He's not going to try to outdo somebody or get into somebody's good side or bad side. He is an individual already. And that was a really big part that I wanted to show. And by contrast, of course, I wanted to show Alexei, who is a competitive type, and said, well, if I'm not in, then I'm against it. If I'm not part of it, I have to be against it.
Yes. And the question that arose in my mind was, what makes your crew, or Dr. Kislin's crew, is pretty much immune to these influences and what of the outside world, especially the competitive, unhappy world, and what makes these people unhappy. Of course, there are a variety of reasons, but one of them, what I noticed, that none of your crew members ever talk about or have access to social media, or even using their phones, or any devices that would take them away from immediate tasks. And there are many tasks that they're doing. So first of all, what I noticed is that they are so busy working, playing, talking, engaging with each other, that they don't have time for social media, and they don't have time for so many negativity that exists on Earth and that is affecting people's lives through social media, through different types of media, through obviously news. And I believe this is one of the main factors of why they're not reposting anybody's posts. They're not
watching cat videos.
Anybody. They are engaged in their own activities that they actually enjoy doing. And I believe this is a big factor that makes them immune from negative influences. What do you think?
Absolutely. That is definitely the core of Leobela, and why these kids are able to go to space and become an actual crew, because they were selected based on that factor. Is they are goal oriented. They have, they wouldn't be where they are if they didn't understand what it means to succeed, what it means to achieve goals, set goals, and then lay a path and move forward towards them. It wasn't necessarily a competitive environment to get on the crew, but they had to have that level of maturity, and that is the underlying factor of Leobela. And I believe, and the core of Leobela is that a less competitive environment, where children are not forced to compare themselves to others, and where they're not necessarily forced to follow rules they don't understand and just be good for somebody. If you set the kids' minds originally towards kind of, what we call adult thinking, which is goal-oriented decision-making. If I'm not working towards my own goals, I'm working towards somebody else's. So I'm basically spending my energy on somebody else's.
Exactly. And this is another thing that is very present with pretty much every one of your characters, is that they are who they are. And they are not only they are not comparing or competing with others, they are so focused on their own interests, and their activities are in accordance with their interests. They are immediate. They're not trying to pretend to be somebody else. They're not trying to copy anybody else. And this immediacy, this sincerity, they are who they are. And I believe that big part of their power, and yes, I agree with you, they are much more mature than most of their peers on Earth and people of their age on Earth, largely because they were encouraged with Leobela's system to explore their own individualities, their own strengths. They are knowing who they are, knowing how to regulate their emotions, understanding their feelings. I believe this is a big part of why they were chosen and why they are not influenced by the especially negative influences from Earth.
Yes, and that is something that I have to say, not only in Leobela, but is very much alive in me as a mother. I see it very much in myself when I go to teacher conferences, parent-teacher conferences, and the teacher starts telling me about, well, the child isn't learning this and they're not learning that, and I'm like, they first have to learn about themselves. Until they know who they are, it's very hard to care about Hemingway or, anybody else. You have to focus first, and that's, I think, Leobela is core, and that's why I talk about meditation, and that's why I talk about breathing exercises, is because you have to slow down. You cannot. I think that that's one of the biggest mistakes that we make as families, as teachers, as mothers, is everything is go, go, go. We have to get to the next thing. We are going to be late. We're going to be late. Let's go. You're not done playing? Let's go. Let's go to the next thing. We're going to be late to the next playground. We're not staying long enough. We're not discovering. We're not spending the time. And that is true about adults, but we are forcing our children into that speed. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about things like social media and spending time scrolling and stuff like that on the phone, a lot of times it's because the mind is so used to being busy, yeah, that slowing down is not natural. And then we have to relearn that.
By the way, this brings me, if you allow me to read another part that I really like, that is directly connected with what you are talking about slowing down and teaching the kids how to do it. One moment. So now we are moving to page 98, and this is Dr. Kislin's daughter who comes into the picture, an amazing character, probably my favorite, but we'll talk about it maybe later if we have time. All right. Then, page 98, as I said. Then my 9-year-old daughter does something that I never once thought to do. She checks my wrist monitor and stops. We both take a few deep breaths, and I look at her with the expression of all my questions at once on my face. Via takes both of my wrists in her hands and looks into my eyes and slowly says, "Mom, please keep breathing. I have to tell you something. I came back to look for work because I can. I am not affected by it." I have goosebumps. What do you mean? My instinct is to yell at the top of my lungs that she has no idea what she's playing with and that she's way out of her depths. She's just a kid playing adult games. Instead, I follow Via's wise instructions and focus on my breathing before I speak. These seconds that it takes me to take a few breaths are enough to remind me that I know Via very well, and I can trust her as much as I can trust myself. And my Leobela mind tells me to shut up and listen to my daughter, just as I do. Mom, Mike explained how warp works to Drew and me. We were completely confused when you left, so he told us what he knew. When he said that the people affected by the device would get mad and frustrated, I remember what you taught us in biofeedback class. Remember, we had a biofeedback class for 4 months before the ISI training began. Yes, of course I do. Dr. Kathy set up an entire lab for your Leobela group, and you learned how to use mindful breathing and other techniques to observe and alter your body's reaction to stress. You focused on heart rate variability, I replied, already knowing what my wise daughter is implying. Mom, I checked Drew's and Mike's wrist monitors. Their heart rate and perspiration spiked during the time we were at in Trish's apartment. I checked your log through our family portal. Yours did too. Mom, you won't believe this, but look. Via stretches out her arms, with the heart rate chart displayed on the past 4 hours. Her heart rate never went above 75. Mine is at 90 right now. Pia, are you saying you are not affected by warp? I asked. Not exactly. When we were in the apartment, it took me some extra effort to breathe the way we normally do when we run into the uncomfortable situations. I figured it had to do with being in Trisha's apartment without her and not understanding what is going on with mine. So I just continued to breathe the way you always taught me. I don't think I'm immune to the effect of warp. I can just tolerate it longer.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful because, of course, the devices can be made that affect our brain activity, our body activity. And perhaps some of them, we will not be immune to them, no matter how well trained we are. And this is beautifully depicted in your book. But I can tolerate it longer. And by the way, I went back when there was the first effect of the device, and Via and Drew started bickering. He started bickering. She was silent, so she didn't engage. Even then, she was not as affected by the device as other children. And of course, the question in my mind, as a psychologist, as a mother, as a grandmother, immediately went to how can we be immune from social influences, from influences of any devices or any social events, so that we at least can tolerate them longer.
Yeah, no, Via, of course, she's my very fictional, very fictional but very real character. She's almost perfect in many ways as a character, and this is where she really comes out as a hero. And she, first of all, I, as an adult, as her mother and her teacher, I step back and I say, I trust this 9-year-old. And that trust is huge. It drives that entire relationship. It shows I am learning from these children just as much as I'm teaching them. And I slow down myself. I don't just go, and I don't just parent. I slow down myself. I learn, I take in, and then I react. So, and I'm teaching her through that. So I have to be that way in order for her to be that way. I have to be that role model. And
she mentions it. I'm sorry for interrupting you. She mentions it several times, just as you taught me. So not only did you teach her, but also she learned it, and she's using it every day, reminding you now from her perspective, in the moments when she is stronger, reminding you to breathe, reminding you to slow down. This is a beautiful interaction between the two of you, trusting each other, acknowledging each other, just being so present with each other. Heartwarming.
And absolutely. And then, of course, biofeedback. I'm a very big fan of biofeedback myself. I took a course on it. It must be like 15 years ago now. And I was a practitioner of biofeedback for a year. I worked with students that had test anxiety. And really is a magical tool. I don't run into it often enough. I absolutely love it. I think that, at that time, my kids were just born. So my daughter was just born when I was actually pregnant when I was going through that course. So 11 years ago, 12 years ago. And working with the students that would come in, and you can ask them any question. They are very calm. They'll answer all that. As soon as you say it's a test and you give them a piece of paper and they start shaking, they can't breathe, and it's very hard for them to overcome the physical in order to focus on what's being asked of them. So I loved that interaction, and I'm not a licensed psychologist, so for my practice was very limited. I was only working with test preparation, and it was really almost like a video game. So they're sitting there, they're connected with sensors to the computer, and they're watching with breathing and with meditation, with certain techniques that I was teaching them. They would sit there and level their heart rate variability, so the heart rate and the breathing, and as they slowed down, like the little rocks would move onto the right pile. If they got nervous, they got stressed, it would pop up to the other side, which of course would make you even more nervous. And now they're all back, and you have to start.
Technology is amazing. And yes, biofeedback, as you just mentioned, is an amazing way of learning about your body and the connection between your mind and body in a fun way nowadays. The first devices that I dealt with, they were much more primitive, that's not right. There was less fun, but still observing how your body reacts to different stimuli is amazing. You're learning about yourself. You're learning what makes it spike, what makes it more calm, the waves of your emotional and body reactions. And can you imagine if, I wouldn't say instead, but at least in addition to cell phones, everyone, because everyone has cell phone right now. I don't know, at least I don't know people who don't after a certain age, but can you imagine wearing the devices that would constantly tell us? Now Apple Watch shows us some of our heart rate or some other physical measurements of our body, but everything that biofeedback shows. So, and on one hand, we have the devices to measure it and to see it on the screen. On the other hand, we all know the tools, how to calm down, how to focus, how to let go, as well as we know, as we can write and read, right? As well as we know math. Everybody can learn it. Of course, there will be always more talented people. Like Via is the most talented. She's least affected by this device than the rest of the crew. But all of them know how to monitor their emotions, how to calm themselves down. And can you imagine if every person on Earth could do that? What a different world this would be. Not only do we observe it, but also we know how to regulate it. Emotional regulation, a big part of your Leobela program and the training of your team. Beautiful.
And that is really the premise of Leobela, and a very big part of why it's so important for me, because I do believe that we learn a lot about how math works and reading and what other people said and thought and why it was right or wrong. And for 12, 13, 15, 20 years, we are learning about other people's thoughts. And the more we learn other people's thoughts, the less we focus on ourselves and what is it that is important to us. And I think that Leobela is put your mask on first. Definitely that message is very loud and clear in there, that discover yourself, discover what makes you who you are and makes you nervous or happy or pleasant to others, because we don't really spend enough time even thinking about how is it that we appear to others.
And to yourself, because very often we don't know how we are, how others perceive us and how we affect others, because we don't know how we are with ourselves. Usually, it's pretty much an axiom for most psychologists, is that we treat others the way we treat ourselves unconsciously. Consciously, we may pamper ourselves and spend so much time fluffing up ourselves, but inside, if we feel miserable, we cannot be good with others for a long time. We can do it for short times, but then we get overwhelmed, then we get irritated. But if we really treat ourselves, our bodies, our minds, our spirit kindly, we cannot help it but be kind to others. It just reflect who we are. We send this, some people say vibes, other people say Wi-Fi, whatever you call it. But we all know that in different people's presence, we feel differently.
Yeah.
And teaching children of recognizing their own vibes and sending this, knowing what kind of vibes, what kind of frequency they send to others. I think it's another absolutely necessary element of raising children.
It is. Yes, I fully agree. And recognize who you are, be able to tune yourself, and feeling yourself. It's what you said about the wearables, right? I know people who literally sleep in that thing. They look every day like, how did I do on my sleep? How did I do on my breathing? How many steps did I take? All that stuff. And it's good, but I feel like it's a good guide, it's a tool, but the idea is, why are you doing it? And you're doing it so that you can understand yourself better. Once you start walking 10,000 steps every single day, the day you walk 8,000, you don't need a watch to tell you that you didn't walk enough. Your body is going to tell you, let's go, we gotta go. So I think getting into those habits, and that's what these kids really portray as great habits. They are inquisitive because they kind of have the routine down. They don't have to worry about, hey, did you brush your teeth? Did you clean your room? That never really comes up in the book that much because, supposedly they're kind of past those things, or maybe they never even really experienced it as a problem because it was never presented to them as a problem.
Yeah, and I think they have so many other things. This becomes part of their, I don't like to call it routine, their everyday life, that it's a part of taking care of their body. So they're not talking about it. It's like you're driving a car. When you're a new driver, you look at every step and have to be reminded. When you're a long-term driver, you do it on autopilot. So these little things to take care of their body hygiene and their body energy, and they eat well, by the way, in several parts of where you are eating together. You mentioned how well they're eating. But in addition to taking care of their body, they don't spend extra time. I never, ever found it encountered in your book, caring about how they look. Nobody of your characters care how they look. They care how they feel. They care how they communicate, but not how they look. And so many people, young people and older people nowadays, spend so much time, effort, money, energy, caring of how they look, that I believe they take away energy and time from caring how they feel, what they're interested in, and so on. And one more comment, when you said that some people are wearing and watching how many steps they take today, how many, or whatever, their heart rates. And I just remember that don't make your tool your goal, or don't make your tool your God. Tool is just a tool, and it's supposed to help you, not to occupy all of your attention. Your attention is on the goal, not on your tool.
Yes, and I think that for the most part, throughout the book, you're going to see that the positive characters, each of them has a goal. They all have either very strong career goals, or team goals, or family goals. And then, of course, the more negative characters, they're competitive. They don't really have goals of their own. They're trying to go after other people's goals,
Yes.
other people's happiness.
They are focused on other people more in terms of how can I be like them than how can I be as I am. And of course, another thing, what your characters are not focusing on is how how to make others, how to put others down. Never in your book have I encountered the reference to putting someone down. Yes, they sometimes not even argue, they debate certain topics, certain issues, and they have very different opinions because they are very different people, but they are not putting others down. So they are really a team, a very good team, caring for each other, supporting each other, knowing how to deal with their negative emotions, helping and reminding others when they forget about taking care of their negative emotions. This was a highlight also of your book.
Yeah, Jenny has a little bit of spice to her, because if somebody doesn't recognize the quote that she's quoting, what book she's talking about, then she'll add a little bit of spice. But again, it's all in good humor and just more.
So she was able, yes, she did it. I remember it now, but also able to take it with a little spice herself. So she knows it's her weak point. She knows that she has tendency and is capable of laughing at herself.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Marina, thank you so much. This was a wonderful dialogue. I'm very happy that we got to dive into two very deep topics and very important topics that I tried to outline and portray in the book. I wanted to ask you if you could wish something for the future readers of Leobela, what would that be?
Well, actually, future readers of Leobela, and this is just how I tend to read books, especially novels, especially fiction books. I really try to connect with each of the character and see what I really like about this character. If I dislike, what do I dislike about this character? And learn about myself based on which characters I like and with which characters I dislike, with which characters I not associate, probably I resonate with, and which characters I don't. And I ask myself, why not? Why I like these characters more than others, and why, for example, as I mentioned at the beginning of our dialogue today, is that Via is my favorite character. And I thought, why? First of all, she is immediate. She doesn't care how she looks or how she's perceived. She is honest, genuine, immediate. Yes, she's smart. Yes, she's caring. Yes, she is almost immune to this warp device. But every time Via comes onto the picture in your book, I always think, what else will she present as her character? As you said, almost perfect character. And I cannot say that I associate myself with her. Unfortunately, I don't. Do I want to be like her? Yes. But she's also a 9-year-old child. And I believe as adults, very often, we want to be like children, to be so open. And I wouldn't call her naive. I wanted to say naive, but caught myself. She's not naive. She is just very genuine and very open. She knows a lot, but she doesn't brag with how much she knows. She is open to more learning, more knowledge. She always says, what do you think? I think that, but what's your perspective on that? And her immediacy and her authenticity, for me, they were contagious. I wanted to read more about her and know her better. And and this is what I recommend to future children, to future readers. Just try to connect with each of the characters and see why you like or dislike them, and what does it tell you about yourself.
Thank you so much, Marina. That was very nice and beautiful, beautiful conclusion. I couldn't agree more. Via is definitely the fun, full of energy, and very open and genuine. So, if you haven't read Leobela, my dear viewers, please pick up the book and check out what we're talking about. I'm sure that you're gonna fall in love with them, with the characters, just as much as we have. If you enjoyed our dialogue, please remember to like this video, and please remember to subscribe to the channel and be the first to know about the next dialogue and the upcoming videos. Also, if you haven't yet, check out the first 2 chapters, which are already on audio, also on my channel. Thank you
I
very
didn't know
much.
about this.
Yes.
This is wonderful.
Yeah, you can now hear my I read them, so you can hear my own voice, and I've gotten some pretty good feedback, so I'm excited to read more and post more.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, Marina, and thank you very much to all of our viewers.
Thank you very much for inviting me.